Okay, so this is my first sermon in front of a big church, so I'm a little nervous, but it'll be good. Who here has felt like summer has flown by? Especially today when it's so beautifully rainy. And I was told that tomorrow's going to be a beautiful high of 11. Are you guys excited? I am. So going into summer, I was really nervous because this was my first summer as a pastor, and I wasn't sure how that was going to work. I was going to be really busy doing a lot of different things, so these are some pictures actually from our trips that we took. So there's 4 things I really love, in no particular order. I love soccer, if any of you guys know. I play it like every Tuesday, Thursday. I absolutely love it. I love working with youth. I love my job. I love my friends and family, and then I love God. And that puts me in different positions. So I'm a teammate, I'm a mentor to people, I'm a friend, I'm a sister, I'm an auntie. I love being an auntie, and I'm a Christian. And so this summer it was hard. It was, what does it look like to be a pastor and to be playing soccer, but to be playing it as hard as I can, but still be a pastor? I think it went well. Things like that, right? What does it look like to be a mentor to youth, whether, yes, I'm playing soccer, or whether I'm just in a grocery store? So it is a weird summer. I was really nervous about it, and how do I keep consistent in the character that I have? So this summer was crazy. I'll go through quickly what it all entailed for me. So Crocus graduation was the 25th of June, which was wonderful. The 23rd, 24th, 25th was Massey, Crocus, Neelan. We actually had grads from all there. It was great to celebrate with them. So the 25th of June, graduation. 26th, I fly out from the Brandon Airport to go to a friend's wedding in BC that I haven't seen in 2 years. So that was a great celebration. Turned it into a little bit of a mini vacay, which was fun. And then, so I was back to work on July 7th. July 12th, we're heading out with our grade 6 to 8s on a camping trip, which was fun. So that gave me 5-6 days to phone back all the parents who are now freaking out because I haven't been in the office for 2 weeks and things like that. So we actually went west. We went to Edmonton, North Battleford, and Saskatoon. So there's a couple pictures of us. We went on a really hot hike with a lot of mosquitoes. They loved it. So then I get back on the 17th of July. The 18th, I head to Kenora with my soccer team to go play in a soccer tournament. Yes, I love soccer, but I hate losing. So we had a heartbreaking loss in the finals. If any of you guys play sports, you know that the worst way to lose possible in a final is this thing called shootouts. Well, overtime, and then shootouts. And then when you're one of the people that misses the net, that was just really fun. So I still got to experience what does it mean to be a pastor who just lost a soccer game that I really wanted to win. So I came back on the 21st, and then we've had Wednesday trips all summer. So gone to Clear Lake, Fun Mountain in Winnipeg. Our last one is the zoo this Wednesday. So I was back on the 21st, and then that gave me about a week and a half to prepare. Then for August 1st to 5th, we took our high school youth actually back out to Kenora area, 2 hours east, this place called Sandbar Lake. It was beautiful. And then an hour south of Kenora to a place called Sioux Narrows. So my summer was crazy busy, and I got to experience a lot of different things and what it meant to be a Christian in all these different circumstances. And at the beginning of the summer, so before all of this, I learned, oh, Nikki, you're going to be speaking. And I was like, sweet, I have 2 months to prepare, right? That's what you guys all think. When they're like, you have to do something big, you're like, I got lots of time. And then on the focus trip, I was like, oh yeah, I have that sermon to prepare, which was 2-3 weeks ago. So it really hit me that I had to work on this. And so this picture is actually, you took 20 steps away from our one campground, and this is what we looked at. We are right on Lake of the Woods. It was unbelievable. So I I don't like camping, just so you know. I did 2 camping trips, but I wouldn't choose to go camping for my own fun. But there's 2 things I do. I know. Why do you do this, Nikki? I don't know. I'm crazy. So there's 2 things I do love about camping. It would be, I love hiking, so I took them on hikes. And I love, views. I love sunrises and sunsets. So I actually convinced, this is great, I convinced 7 youth/leaders to wake up with me at 5:30 a.m. to watch the sunrise. Suckers. I don't know why they did it. So they actually woke up with me. Funny story, it was non-existent that morning. So it was so cloudy, so they were really happy. So I drove them to the showers to make up for it. But I love sunrises and sunsets, and Pastor Vern had been speaking this summer, right before the summer, about finding quiet time with God. And so because I knew this was coming up, I was like, I need to find just some quiet time. So I actually woke up 2 other mornings at about the 5:30 time, which I don't wake up early on regularly. Like, you can ask any other pastors. I'm not one of the first ones here, usually. But I woke up at 5:30 for that because I just realized I need to spend some quiet time with God. I need to see what he wants me to speak about. And so in my mind, I knew the topic I was going to speak on. And God's like, hey, and here's the verse I want you to speak on. And I was like, okay, sweet. And then I came back, and I realized that verse that he gave me wasn't really the topic I wanted to speak on. I was like, thanks for that one. Woo, curveball. So this sermon is called, Do Not Fear, You Are Mine. And I'm a worrier, so whenever I hear do not fear in the Bible, which it says a lot, also all these pictures are from our trip. They're just beautiful. But whenever I hear do not fear, I'm really like, okay, God, you want to tell me something, because that's kind of the type of person I am. So, dear Lord, I just pray that what you speak through me today will be your words completely and not mine, Lord. And I pray that those who need to hear it, that our ears can be opened and our hearts can be open to what you're trying to reveal to us today. Amen. Okay. So the passage is Isaiah 43, 1-7. So while you guys look it up on your devices or in the Bibles, it'll also be up there in a bit. But I'm just going to tell you a little bit about Isaiah, just to give us kind of an idea of what we're talking about. This is poetic, so Isaiah's not exactly telling the history. If you want to look at the history, you can look at 2 Kings, but it's poetic. And Isaiah is a major prophet, so there's 2 parts, actually, of Isaiah. 1-39 is the book of judgment. Luckily, we're skipping that one, right? And the second part is the book of consolation. So that's like the comforting and God saying, I'll be there for you. That's 40-66. That's the good stuff. That's what we're going to speak about today. And so the actual particular section that I picked is squeezed between God's people being told that they are deaf and blind and that they're not listening or seeing what God is telling them, what God's revealing to them. And so that's just a little background for what we're going to be talking about. So, Isaiah 43. But now, this is what the Lord says. He who created you, O Jacob, he who formed you, O Israel. Fear not, for I have redeemed you. I have summoned you by name. You are mine. When you pass through the waters, I will be with you. And when you pass through the rivers, they will not sweep over you. When you walk through the fire, you will not be burned. The flames will not set you ablaze. For I am the Lord your God, the Holy One of Israel, your Savior. I give Egypt for your ransom, Cush and Seba in your stead. Since you are precious and honored in my sight, and because I love you, I will give men in exchange for you, and people in exchange for your life. Do not be afraid, for I am with you, and I will bring your children from the east and gather you from the west. I will say to the north, give them up, and to the south, do not hold them back. Bring my sons from afar and my daughters from the ends of the earth. Everyone who is called by my name, whom I created for my glory, whom I formed and made. So there's a lot in there, as you can tell. So we're going to try and whip through a bunch of that. So I know, okay, so I'm a little bit of a nerd, just to tell you guys. I don't like Canadian history or American history or any of that other type of history, but I really like Bible history. I graduated from Briarcrest with a BA in youth ministry and a minor in biblical studies and psychology, which is like, usually if you're in youth min, you're just having a blast. But I was like, woo, let's study a bunch for fun. So everyone thought I was weird. But because I've taken this biblical studies and this psych, I like thinking what people would think and kind of seeing the history, what was all going on. So the history of what was going on, for you who like history, you'll enjoy this. For you who don't, sorry. So Isaiah 1 to 39, those chapters. So if I can have the map up there. Yeah, I even color-coded it for you guys. Because that's what I like. So it starts with Assyria wants to expand their empire. So Assyria is in the red. So they want to expand their empire, and they're fighting against Israel and Syria. So the blue guys. The red guys are against the blue guys. That's how I like to think of it. And Syria and Israel go to Judah, and they're like, hey, want to help us out to fight Assyria? Judah's like, no, we're going to get beaten. I don't want to fight with you. So those two guys get mad, and they're like, okay, fine, we're going to retaliate. We're going to fight against you. So Judah runs to Assyria and is like, help us. The thing is, before they run there, Isaiah says, do not make an alliance with these people. Because God is the one that's going to provide. God will tell you when to make an alliance. God will tell you when you need something else, but you only need God in this circumstance. So Judah doesn't listen. King Hezekiah. So they actually link up with Assyria. Assyria and Judah end up beating Syria and Israel. So woo, they win. But then Assyria realizes, you know what? I don't really need Judah. So I'm going to go, and we're going to take over Judah. So then Judah decides, I'll run to Egypt in the orange. I'll run to Egypt. I'll get their help. But again, Isaiah says, stop running to other people. God will provide. So this time, Hezekiah listens, doesn't link up with Egypt, and God is faithful, and God destroys Assyria. So then the king, feeling pretty proud of himself, right? He took over Assyria, like he's feeling good. So it says in 2 Kings 20, verse 13, so if you want to be reading the background, it's 2 Kings 20, but it says, there was nothing in his palace or in all his kingdom that Hezekiah did not show them. So Hezekiah becomes prideful, and he says, look at how good we are. I'm going to show you all these treasures that we have now gotten because we beat these people. And Isaiah then prophesies and says, well, now that you showed them all the treasures, Babylon, the purple, is going to take over you. You're going to be captors of them. So what happens is it comes true, right? Babylon ends up having these people taken into captivity. And so those that are actually reading what we're going to be reading are in captivity currently. Things aren't looking so good for them. Also, Persia in the pink right over there, it's important to remember that they're just over there for later on. Anyway, that's great. So that was a little history lesson from Nikki. So now we'll get into the verses. So Isaiah 43:1 starts with, but now. And so when it says, but now, it's saying, guess what? You did something, but now. It's like when you do something and your mom's like, yeah, you can get this, but you got to do this first. I hear that a lot. So it's God saying, you've messed up, but guess what? Here's another chance. We find in our lives, right, we make messes, we sin, we mess up a lot. But God says, yeah, you mess up, but I'm not going to leave you in that mess. And that's what he's telling these people right now. You're in captivity, but I won't leave you there. And so it's poetic, right? So it actually starts with created you, formed you, and then in verse 7 it goes back to created you, formed you. The fact that it's saying that twice is kind of important, right? He's saying, don't forget the relationship you have. Don't forget that you mean something to God. Don't forget that he's the one that started this all, that we weren't just made by accident. I think of Genesis 1:27. It says, so God created human beings in his own image. In the image of God, he created them. He created us. Psalm 139, this created and formed, it's the exact wording. If you looked at the Hebrew, it says, you watched me as I was formed in utter seclusion, as I was woven together in the dark of the womb. You saw me before I was born. Every day of my life was recorded in your book. Every moment was laid out before a single day had passed. We're important. God's saying, I spent time. When you were in the womb, I wasn't just like, hey, have a good time. I was spending time making you exactly how you're supposed to be, right? And probably each of us have those things about us that we're like, yeah, but couldn't God have just made it a little bit different? And he's saying, no, I wanted you exactly how I made you. I spent time on you. And then it says, do not fear. And it says it over like 300 times in the Bible. It says it a lot. And so God knows, this is hard on his people, God knows they're in captivity, and that would be really scary. I've never been there, but I can imagine. I watch movies. I can imagine how bad it would be, I guess. And so why not fear, right? He says, do not fear, but then he gives 3 reasons. He says, I have redeemed you, I have summoned you, you are mine. And so I've redeemed you. He's saying, I'm the only one that's going to save you, no one else, right? Don't make all those relationships with other people, because I'm the one that's going to save you. You don't need anyone else. I have summoned you. He's saying, I picked you. It's not like we are playing dodgeball and all the good people were picked and then I just got stuck with you. He's saying, no, I picked you. I wanted you. And then you are mine. Has anyone ever seen Finding Nemo? Anybody with children probably has. When all the seagulls are like, mine, mine, mine. Yeah, maybe you guys know that one, maybe not. It makes me think of that. It's kind of a weird little picture, but, right? Or I have a little nephew. Luckily, he does not know the word mine yet, but he likes to, like, pretend to give you something and then take it away. It's really adorable, unless you want it. But, like, kids will sometimes say, that's mine. That's not yours, it's mine. And that's kind of what God's saying. It says how God is a jealous God, and he's saying, you are mine. I don't want to share you. I don't want a piece of you on Sunday, and the rest of the time you can do whatever you want. God's saying, I want all of you. I don't want to share you. And, right, these people have had idols. We think of the golden calf. We think of different circumstances where they're worshiping other gods. And I mean, we can have idols in our lives today. And that doesn't mean they're always bad things, but sometimes they're things that we put above God. And God's saying, I don't want to share you. I don't want a piece of you. You're mine. I'm jealous. You're mine. I want all of you. And so that's kind of a crazy picture, because it's like, okay, God's jealous for me. I'm that important that he doesn't want to share me. That should make us realize that we're special. That he's not just, oh yeah, I'll just hang out with you and that's fine. He wants all of us. And then verse 2. So this verse reminds me of 2 different stories in the Old Testament. 2 stories of trusting God. One, obviously, is the Red Sea, right? When it says, when you pass through the rivers, they will not sweep over you. Makes me think of the Red Sea. And when you walk through the fire, you will not be burned. Fiery furnace, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, or for the children, Rack, Shack, and Benny, VeggieTales. But, right, he's saying there's all this stuff. Sometimes it can feel like we're overwhelmed, like there's all this stuff in our lives that we're like, God, we can't get through this. And he's saying, yeah, you might feel like it's completely covering you right now, like you have no way out, like you were thrown into that furnace. But he's saying, I will be with you. He's not going to leave us. So we have the storms of life that, right, you've probably heard that term, the storms of life that we feel like we're lost and we can't breathe and we can't get out of this. But God's saying, you're not alone in all of this. And then the next one. So this is where the history lesson was kind of important. So those currently reading know that Babylon, that's where they're in captivity, and they're a superpower. And they know Egypt, they're another superpower. And they don't have a shot. They don't have a shot against either one of these people. They're pretty much saying we're doomed, we're at the mercy of them. But the writer of Isaiah begins to give hints that something big is going to happen, right? He says, I give Egypt for your ransom. So what actually ends up happening is that the Persians, remember those little pink guys that I said were going to be important? They were, because the Persians come and they attack Babylon, and the captives are free, and they attack Egypt, and God's people are free, and they never saw that coming. They thought there was not a hope. But they're free, and in Isaiah 56 to 66, it's actually them establishing this new life that God has given them, that they didn't think was going to happen. So God is saying, yep, you're going to be free. You're going to be reunited and kept safe, and that's exactly what happens. And then in verse 4, it says, since you are, and so, right, so this is why they are, or why they are precious and honored in my sight, because I love you. So I did a word study. Again, I am a nerd, I'm sorry, but I did this little word study on the word precious, and on the particular word precious that they used in the Hebrew. And so if you think you were to have a fire or a flood or something, and think of one thing in your house that you're saying, I'd have to get that because I could not replace it. So you can think of that right now. I think of one of the things would be this ring I have. And so the night before I was installed or whatever as a pastor here, my mom came into my room and was like, hey, Nikki, are you asleep? And I was like, well, it doesn't matter anyway because you're talking to me now. But I was like, yeah, I'm awake, Mom. And she's like, hey, I have something to give you. And I said, okay. And so she gave me this ring. And this ring was my great-grandma's ring. And it has, right, the family kind of jewel type things in it. And it's valuable. And if there was a flood or a fire or something and I had to get something out, hopefully I'd be wearing it, but I'd want this. Because the thing is, if it ever got destroyed, I couldn't pay for something to replace it. I couldn't buy something to replace it. It was my great-grandma's. And it's valuable just for what it is. And that's actually what this means. It's saying you're prized and you're valuable not because of what you do. Not because you're the best at this, or you're the smartest, or you're the funniest, or whatever. And you're not losing your value because you messed up really bad there, or maybe you're not the best at this. It's saying you're valuable because I made you valuable. You can't lose that, and you can't gain more value, right? If this loses a gem, it doesn't lose that it's just as valuable to me. If it gets dirty, it doesn't lose value to me. Doesn't gain value if it looks prettier that day. And that's what God's saying. We're valuable, literally, because he made us valuable. So our value doesn't change. And then he says, so we're precious and honored in my sight because I love you. Because he loves us, that's why we're valuable. And his love doesn't change. It's not like he's mad at us one day. And so again, when I was in Bible college, I took this psych, and I learned something. It says about youth, but I think this is about people in general. And it says that we all have 3 things that we need in our life to survive. These 3 things that we long for. And if we don't find it in one way, we'll find it in a relationship, we'll find it in being important, we'll find it in some way. And the 3 things are, we desire to belong, we desire to be significant, and we desire to be loved. And so we can find that in God, but we could find that in a lot of different ways. And no matter if you're a Christian or you're not, you seek those things. And I think that's completely true for all people. And so this verse exactly hits those three longings that we have. The first one, to belong. If we go back to verse 1 or verse 7, God created us. He formed us. We belong because we are his, that he spent time on. We belong to his family, right? The second one, we're significant. Well, going back to how valuable and precious we are, we're significant for who we are, for who he made us. That makes you feel pretty significant. That he says, I'll give other people in ransom for you. And then I love you, right? When he says, I love you, we're loved. He's saying that right there. And God says, I will give people in exchange for you. And that's exactly what he does, right? So Egypt and Babylon are conquered. And nations in exchange for your life. And I think even more, this is alluding to the biggest exchange when Christ is given for each one of us. He gives Christ to suffer for each one of us. And so then verse 5 says again, do not be afraid, for I am with you. So he continues to know, I'm telling you all these things, but there's going to be some worries. There's going to be some times when you question. But don't worry, I'll be with you, and I'll bring you all back together. And then verse 6, God will protect us against our strongest foes. When it says he's going to say, give them back, do not hold them back. That's not God just, the nice little God that's like, oh, can you just, bring the people back. He's saying, no, give them back now, or I'm going to destroy you. And that's what God says in our daily fights. He's saying, no, I'm going to fight for you. God's a loving God, but there's some more character to him than that. He fights us, and he fights for us, and he will protect us. And then the last verse, again, he's reminding us of everything he said. Everyone who is called by my name, whom I created for my glory, and whom I formed and made. So again, he created us. So what does this all mean? It means that the God of the Old Testament is the same God that we have now. That jealous God that we have, that God that fights for us, is the same. He's jealous. He wants all of us. He says, you're mine, don't share me. He's loving. He's protecting. And he keeps his promises. And God makes lots of promises. And what has he promised? He's promised to redeem us. He did through his son, right? He brought him. And so even when we sin, God's saying you're still valuable to me. And he has called us. Each of us has a purpose. And maybe some of us know our purpose. Maybe some of us don't. Maybe some of us know our purpose right now, but who knows what it's going to be tomorrow. And he loves us, and we are his. So who are we? We are precious for what God made us to be. We can't lose that, and I can't stress that enough. We will mess up. I mess up daily, hourly, almost minutely. But God doesn't say, you messed up today, so you're a little bit down. There's no ranking system. God says you're still as valuable. And I'll say, yeah, God, look what I did. And he's like, that's great. You're still as valuable. That doesn't mean we don't strive to do our best to please him. But God looks at us and says, I love you no matter what. We are honored. We are loved. We are his. So what should we do? Trust God. Trust God. And then accept his love. Sometimes it's hard because maybe we've been in relationships, friendships, whatever, that the people have really hurt us. And you're saying, it's really hard to trust. And it's really hard to trust in our society. But he's saying, just trust me. I have been faithful this whole time. And sometimes in our lives we say, yeah, but what about right now? When we look back, we realize he was faithful. But right in that time, it's really hard to believe he's being faithful. God's saying, just simply trust me. So worship team, you can come up. So there's something very special to me about watching a sunset. This was actually a sunset over Kenora with our Focus Youth, which is our high school youth. There's something special to me about watching a sunset because I realize how big God is and how small we are. And that doesn't mean our problems are insignificant to him. It means he's so much bigger than those, that our problems aren't too much, that he's not saying, oh, I hope I can overcome this. He knows he can. And some of life's problems, I don't know what you guys are all going through, might feel impossible to face. It might feel like, God, I can't do this. And I know I'm young, so I haven't been through all the things that some of you have been through. But I know that God has told us not to fear and that he's with us. He's promised us that he will not forsake us. He said he is close to the brokenhearted. And he said he will give us rest. These are all promises in Scripture. So I just want to encourage you, do not fear. We are his. And I just want to leave you with God's words. It says, do not fear, for I have redeemed you. I have summoned you by name. You are mine. When you pass through the waters, I will be with you. And when you pass through the rivers, they will not sweep over you. When you walk through the fire, you will not be burned. The flames will not set you ablaze.